Hello everyone, back-to-back episodes from NFC South, from the team that has hope to the team that I called hopeless just last season, from Carolina Panthers to the New Orleans Saints. Let's find out how I feel about the Saints 1 year forward, and also just an update on the Cats. It seems like they are religious because for the Saints episode they are here, though they do not definitely behave like Saints. I mean, as close to as Saints treat financial caps with caution, I would say that's as close they are towards being Saints. But with no further ado, let's start this episode with a draft review of their last year's picks. We start with Talias Fuaga. I think like 1 year into his career, he is kind of everything you wished him to be at this point of his career. Transition from college to the pros. Left tackle is definitely up there with the toughest position to transition at. So he had kind of as good as rookie season you kind of hope for, and definitely was like far from any type of problem, and you are encouraged by his first season. Hello. Sorry guys. With that being said, really nice pick and something that they kind of desperately needed to hit at given Ryan Ramchik's injury, and that kind of unfortunately ended his career. And also their first round pick from like 4 years ago right now, Trevor Penning, really not panning out. Unfortunate pun there. I'm kind of worried because it seems like they have something in their mind. Guys, if you hear and see crashes, you know something bad happened. Let's go towards their second pick. That was Kool-Aid McKinstry. And the only question mark I had with this pick was I did not trust Saints organization to be smart about their situation, which in my eyes is, well, we are over the cap significantly. We need to do something about it. And I didn't trust them to trade one of their corners. But they did. They traded Marshall Latimore. This was clearly the plan, so applause. And like I will again make a lot of comments about how they treat salary cap and how effed they are. But here, clear plan, very good execution, and they've got themselves a baller. Really nice season for Kool-Aid, and also very cool name. After that, they took Spencer Rattler, which again was something I applauded because to me, he's kind of another potential for them to start to behave rationally, really realize that the road they are on just leads to nowhere, nothing but disappointment. And Spencer Rattler was the type of a prospect that he's kind of boom or bust in terms of, well, this is the type of player that if you are trying to hit on a late round QB to potentially be a starter, you go for guys like Spencer Rattler. Perhaps if you are in a different position and you have your guy for the future, which I don't necessarily believe that Saints have, and you are looking for a good floor backup that you have for 4 years cheap, I would not recommend drafting Spencer Rattler. So here I was applauding the process. At least I hope they had this one. Though Spencer got his chance in his first year and it wasn't always pretty. After that, they played some rookie wide receivers because of the injuries. Unfortunately, none of them showed like any huge promise, whether it's Bob Means or Mason Tipton. And they also didn't get anything from Jalen Ford, Christian Boyd, neither Josiah Ezerim, but there was that would be kind of something as a bonus. So overall, they hit where they needed to hit in Fuaga and Kool-Aid. And I would say even Spencer Rattler had some flashes, though I'm not as high on this potential of Spencer being like transition level QB as I was before. That being said, let's take a look at how that season went for the Saints overall. We start with QBs, and Derek Carr is a QB that I super struggled when they paid him, because to me it absolutely showed unrealization of where they are at in terms of financials, and also like misreading what quality of the player Derek Carr is. Like at his best, which I think he looked his best in last 5 years this season, and perhaps like even in his career, but I'm not willing to go that far. He gives you average level of quarterbacking. He is a good starter, somewhere around like 18th, 17th best in the league. But that's his ceiling. The good thing is his floor is somewhere around 25th. But that's not the guy that you should be paying almost 40 millions a season. And they also like made his contract that 100 millions of 150 that they gave him was guaranteed. I'm not saying Derek Carr is a bad QB, but at best, I think you should treat him towards similar type of deals that Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield got, which is 3 years, 100 millions, and kind of it's 2 years deal that unless it pans out well for you, you get rid of him for a really small amount of dead cap money. And this is not saying that Derek Carr is not a good QB. Again, I think he's a good starter. He was a pleasure to watch this year. He was really good, and you could see like a huge difference when he was not playing because he missed some games with injuries. But like with him, like I would argue that having Derek Carr is on this type of contract is kind of one of the worst situations for you, because you will continuously think that, well, he's good, so we can go somewhere. But no, you won't. And at the same time, you will continuously not be super bad, so you will not have the top draft picks to replace him. So, like, I don't want this to sound like super bad, because for what he did, Derek Carr this season, he really deserves a lot of praise. He was really good, and like there was a lot of injuries happening towards the Saints, and he had to work with that, and like he did a really good job. But that's kind of the definition of where you don't want to be with your QB room in the NFL, in my opinion. Behind him, Spencer Rattler, already talked about him. Like I'm not gonna judge him too harshly because he didn't enter like very positive situation. But like beside kind of the first game, it felt like when defensive coordinators knew that he's going to play, they could prepare. It was ugly. So not something you are encouraged by for Spencer. Let's move towards running backs, and here I have to praise Alvin Kamara, who is kind of this Adam Thielen type of player that if you look and compare him to where he was at his best, you are like, well, he's not that. But when you think about what he is a pretty damn good player. And leader of this locker room, leader of this team, and he gives you something to be excited about. He stayed relatively healthy, which unfortunately is one part of his career that really hold him off severely. But like from his, I would say like there was 1 year when he like really declined from that top elite status. But since there, he kind of stopped the decline, and he is steadily very good running back. Like you can use for several more years if you are smart about him, in my opinion. Unfortunately for Jamal Williams, Mr. Pokemon, I cannot disrespect Pokemon in front of Jamal. He might be a really good locker room presence, but in terms of what his output is on the field, it's just not good enough to be anything more than like rotational second, third best running back on the roster, and for what they were paying him, not necessarily worth the money. And when I say paying him, what they were paying him, I meant like the deal that he signed, like 3 years, 12 millions. I mean, it's not a huge amount, right? But this was a deal that was signed in an environment of NFL where this was actually like, should we pay Saquon Barkley $9 million a year? That was the type of discussion that we were having. And if you go and sign for half of that Jamal Williams, it didn't match his output. Unfortunately for them and for Kendre Miller, for this guy, he has just over 200 snaps in NFL. He's shown a lot in them, but unfortunately injuries are just piling up, and it's a huge question whether he can really uphold with the workload of the NFL. Let's move towards wide receivers, and this is one of the room that I will spend some time talking, even in general, about NFL, because this room is depleted by injuries. And with Rashid Shaheed, it's not necessarily that serious towards him as like a player, like a living human being, as it is for Chris Olave, because his concussions scare the shit out of me, man. And I feel like every time this topic is brought up as something that needs to be in the head of GM when he's constructing the roster, when he's thinking about who is he going to pay, of course it's there. The fact that we will not talk about it does not change this fact. You have to accommodate for this scare. And I feel like not talking about it just doesn't do anything for the problem itself. And I have some thoughts about this, because when Chris Olave got his final concussion, there was a lot of outrage on Twitter that Derek Carr is the guy that caused Chris Olave his injury, because he thrown the ball towards a situation where it was clear that he is going to put himself into compromising position and get hit to the head. And while I want to defend Derek Carr, because from a human side of things, I have zero problems with Derek Carr. I think he is actually quite a nice person, really a guy that you do befriend, you like to have around. And if anything, I would say that he might be timid, timid quarterback, but I would say if he had to choose between putting his body on the line or voluntarily putting someone else risk of his let's say concussion or some severe injury, I would say he rather puts his own body on the line. I kind of think highly of him in this regard, so I don't think it's necessarily his fault, but I would say that this is a trend that is partially caused by the NFL itself. And this is something that I want to discuss, because when you are just lowering the abilities for defensive players to, let's say, make any sort of physical play, it encourages quarterbacks mostly, but even wide receivers, to put themselves more in compromising positions, because they are well, if the guy hits me, it's a penalty, so it's kind of win for me, because we get 15 yards free. And if he doesn't, I'm going to make a catch, so it's win-win. But it's not really a win-win, because you are not preparing yourself for this collision, you are not protecting yourself, and because of that, the injuries will pile up. So I would say, by trying to say to the defensive players that you kind of are responsible for protecting offensive players, that first of all, it sounds stupid, and second of all, I feel like it just pushes more and more offensive players to risk more. And when this game is playing in such a high speed, and it's a contact game, it's a physical game, and you cannot get rid of that part, it's not a flag football, right? The injuries, I think, will unfortunately increase. And that's not something that you want to happen, right? And the second part of it is the situation with quarterback sliding. It's something that I had a strong opinion last year, especially with Josh Allen against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And my opinion on this is very similar. This is not about being against Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes using this rule, because they are. They are able to juke you on the second when they feel like you are not giving 100%, because you cannot as a defender, because then you would be tackling them in a situation that you cannot, and it's going to be a personal foul. So I'm not blaming them for using that rule, but at the same time, it allows them to abuse that rule. It allows them to like put themselves out there for more compromising situations rather than protect themselves with earlier sliding. Like just slide 1 yard early. Don't make the last juke move. Don't make that last twitch of the head. Because for a defender, one, I would not kind of blame them if their thinking is like, well, if I'm about to get 15-yard penalty for anything, pretty much, if I touch him, let's just fucking blast him because it doesn't matter, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thinking, but if you get cooked on this play once or twice a game and you are heading there for time, don't you think you had a little bit of red in front of your eye and you are like, well, I have nothing to lose pretty much in that situation? And second, it again encourages offensive players to not take care of themselves. So I am like strongly with Tom Brady on this one, who was really having, I think, like sophisticated thoughts mostly about like some throws that he was just not making because he knew that his wide receiver would pay with injuries for those throws. And we kind of allowed quarterbacks to make those throws in modern NFL by pushing the rules, but the NFL and the players are unfortunately, I think, paying the cost. I don't necessarily think like they are like super dirty players, like for example, Vontaze Burfict was, who are out there to try to hurt actively someone else, right? And yet we have a lot of concussions, we have a lot of that. And when we are with concussions, I feel like there is, again, when you talk about it, I feel like it could lead to some ideas. For example, to me, it's kind of very weird that for anyone who had concussion, why is that not a mandatory helmet that provides some more protection against concussions? It's not definitely like a bulletproof, it's not concussion proof, and I even believe that Chris actually got one of his concussion wearing that helmet, but it's like it should be mandatory. Like if it's something that protects you from something that you've already suffered and it can cause serious issues to your fucking brain, like what are we doing? It should not limit you by any stretch of imagination with your game. If anything, it's in your head, and I think you should be able to like persuade your head, well, not wearing lucky helmet but wearing a safety helmet is better for me than getting hit once more into unprotected part of my brain. So that's kind of my rant, and I needed to go there with Chris Olave being one of the guys, and we will soon have obviously Dolphins and Tua. So tell me in the comments, what do you think about these topics? How would you approach them? Do you think it's positive to talk about them? And overall, what are your ideas? With that being said, let's go back to the actual performance of these players. And it was nice, but it was short. Like both Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed had really nice seasons. Unfortunately, due to injuries, neither of them was able to play more than 400 snaps. And for both of them, though from like a different types of injuries, this is kind of recurrent situation. And when you are constructing this room, like how do you approach that? Are you trying to bring some other guys in to compete, but then it's week one, they are both healthy and $10 million receiver, because that's kind of what you need to pay if you want to have someone as good as Shaheed is sitting on the bench because you don't have the room, or you are flipping the coin and you hope against the odds they will both stay healthy. Kind of an interesting decision that they will have to make in free agency. Cedric Wilson, kind of smart veteran signing. He was just an adequate member of this offense, really a player that they've signed for cheap and gave them decent floor, but also was unable to play the whole season. Fortunately, the rest of this room, especially with young talents like Bob Means and Mason Timpton, is nothing to be super happy about. After Shaheed went down, they acquired Marcus Valdes-Scantling, and he kind of looked very nice on a lot of deep throws. Like having over 400 yards on just 19 reception is kind of crazy stat. Like it's absolutely clear like what was they're thinking about him. Just go, we'll throw the ball into your direction, and if one or two plays you can come up with like 25 yards, yeah, that's a good that's a good deal, right? So that's kind of how they used him. I'm not sure if they will bring him back, because everything is like, how do you approach the situation from financial standpoint of view, but from fit and from like him being this kind of natural backup to Rashid Shaheed, that would fit very nicely. Low-key, one of the best part of this team is this tight end room, where you have Jovan Johnson, your hands tight end, Foster Moreau, or let's say biceps tight end, aka a guy that can really well block, and your Tyson Hill, your we always call him like a Swiss Army knife, someone that has so many utilities, so many functions, that he just complements this room very well. He can block, he can pass, he can run, he can catch, he can do pretty much everything on quite a nice level. Unfortunately, as is kind of untold part of Saints season for anybody who didn't watch them too closely, even here we had to unfortunately, we've been stripped of the pleasure to watch this room together for the whole season because of Hill injury, and it kind of took away the freshest wind that this room has. Though one of the biggest things was Foster Moreau, let's say, breakout season. For him as a cancer survivor, you kind of have to root on like a human level, and as a player, he is a traitsy guy. Though here he looks like he has only a part of a football, and I just couldn't help myself not to stay with this picture. And maybe there is something in there, that because he spent several years in Vegas behind Darren Waller, and then cancer kind of took over for. Not necessarily took over, but definitely did not make things easier for him to prep and play. There is something there, and he is definitely an exciting player, and as of right now, he looks like kind of a bargain that they were able to sign last off-season. Now, let's check this offensive line, and we start with good and questions. So, the good, Teras Forga, again, he has every potential to be a franchise left tackle. It's just a room that has so much competition, and it's super tough to be really good at year one, but he was good, and definitely a good find. I mean, fine, he was a first round pick. It's not such as of a find. It's like, you look on this board, oh, there's a tackle. We need tackles. Okay, let's draft Teras Forga. So I'm not giving them too much credit, but good pick as of right now. You got finally something from Trevor Penning. Was it pretty? Not. It was mostly about him being this huge body that helps the running game very well. But in terms of pass pro, there's still so many ugly moments on the tape that even decent starter was kind of pushing myself, but I feel like he kind of deserves it after this year. And it's going to be interesting what they will do with him, because I don't think you, by any stretch of imagination, want to pick up his 50-year option. I think that would not be smart. And the question is, do you try to make something weird happen? That's this new trend of putting this big-bodied, mostly really good run blockers towards interior as guards. And especially with Kellen Moore taking over, he just done that with Mekhi Becton in Philadelphia. So there is a lot of similarities between Becton and Penning. Both of them really didn't pan out as great, highly drafted tackles, but they look apart in terms of how beefed up they are. So putting them inside, that might be very, very interesting. And if you give me a good odds, I would bet on that to happen. And I think it could be very, very interesting. In terms of Eric McCoy, similar to Taysom Hill, similar to Chris Olave, similar to Derek Carr, it's as much as I am negative about the Saints overall, there is some part of unluck for 2024 season, because a lot of their great players went down with injuries very in the season. And they've started the season like exceptional well. They went 2-0, they cruised, like they beat Dallas and they beat Panthers. They just like absolutely demolished them. Then they had kind of a slump, and then they stockpiled injuries. So like could it have been a season in which Saints do make a playoff? Perhaps, but as I mentioned several times, if you are compromising your future so much as the Saints doing, and kind of your best case scenario, like if nobody goes down, we are one and done playoff team, that's really nothing to compromise for. So I just wanted to mention that they kind of had a really bad injury bug. Eric McCoy, their best offensive lineman, played just under 300 snaps, was just insane in them. Like he was on a pace to be a Pro Bowler. So unfortunately, we didn't get to see much more of that. He is one of the highest paid centers in the league, and definitely justifiably so. Let's just hope that he can stay healthy for next year. In terms of interior, it was like, well, we don't necessarily have players besides Cesar Ruiz, whom we paid, that we necessarily trust, but they kind of were able to figure it out. Signing of Lucas Patrick turned out to be very, very good. Like he came as this kind of versatile center to guard option, and they kind of used him on both positions, especially after McCoy went down. Unfortunately, he also went down for some part of the season because of injury, and he absolutely looked the part. So after a not very good season with the Bears, he kind of put himself back on the map as this versatile. If he's your worst piece of your offensive line, you can live with that type of player that is worth like 5 to 6 millions a year. Cesar Ruiz just continues to be good guard in the league. I need just tiny more flashes to put him towards a good starter, but he's definitely super close to that. And perhaps after some more watching during the summer, he will end up being there. Like I have some players that I'm like, I wonder why they are just not this great, but it's up and down. It goes both ways, and I need to rewatch them more. And Cesar Ruiz is really one of them because he's kind of too invisible when you are just watching it without like putting focus on him, that you might not appreciate everything that he does. And I need to get back to the film room, especially with him. And with Nick Saldiveri, due to the injuries to Patrick and McCoy, he was kind of forced to play some football in his second year, and he looked okay-ish. You know, nothing you are like accepting as your starting play and you are excited about that, but someone that you like are not losing from your mind in terms of, well, there could be some potential in there, and we have some options if guys go down. You cannot really say that about neither Shane Lemieux, neither Landon Young. It just was not good enough, especially in pass pro. Like, I mean, you maybe use them in some 6 lineman sets, but even there, it's mostly like you are using tackles rather than interior players, because like you are putting them on the like towards like tight end position, so they are not necessarily used to play there, so they don't have necessarily like this versatility for you. So really, two guys that, like, gain some snaps weren't looking like absolutely poor, but nothing you really want to put out there and hope for the best. With that, we finished talking about New Orleans offense in retrospective to 2024. I would say, despite some very ugly games like shutout against the Packers, Christmas game that I was like, this was one of the games that I'm like, I'm not sure I'm gonna watch this, because I watched every single game, but it was like through the red zone or through like as individual, and this was like, man, it's Christmas. It's going to be so freaking boring. But I forced myself. I regret it. But yeah, everybody else like that was ugly. It was one of the worst games this season, because it was just so one-sided that it was like, 10 minutes in, you were like, I have to absolutely love football to put myself through this much of a pain. Let's go and take a look at what their defense done in 2024. We start with Kyra Granderson, who is definitely a positive sign of this defensive line. He's, I would say, like not necessarily what Montez Sweat is, but kind of close to this player that if he's your best edge, you can do with, but you need another, at least a good piece for your edge room to be like competitive. And in ideal scenario, he's your number 2, and he is kind of creme de la creme of those groups. They paid him decent chunk of money, $14 million a year, and it actually makes them look quite smart because for now it looks like a bargain. It was actually just a $13 million a year. That's definitely, he's outplaying that contract quite certainly. Like I think he's like close to $20 million dollars a year type of player. Then you look at Chase Young, who was kind of this, I don't want to say Robin to this Batman because they were worse than that, but I was not a huge fan of this signing. And like to make this knee line work, I understand it, but with the financial troubles that you are in, it just felt like you are wasting 10 million. I think what Chase Young got. Let me check on that one. No, 13 millions, that you are just wasting that for a player that he's not part of your future, and what he brings you towards 2024. Like, is he bringing you 0.25 wins more? I would say even that is a stretch, and like even if that's the case, like what does it necessarily give you if you are predicting to like win 7.5 games? Okay, it makes you more likely to go 11-6 as your best case scenario, perhaps winning division, perhaps going as a wild card and still being one and done because you are just no match for other teams. Yeah, that's like I understand it from the perspective. Well, we want to have competitive knee line. Kyra Anderson kind of needs the second guy to make the edge room really good. But from financial standpoint of view, I just no, like you should not be doing these moves, in my opinion. Then we look at Cam Jordan, who, unfortunately, unlike Alvin Kamara or unlike Demario Davis that we will talk about later, the age is just an ugly master at this point. He looks bad. He looks really, really bad. Like compared to what he definitely like was in his prime, right? That's not saying that he is an unplayable player, but if you are paying him, 5.5 to 6 millions for what he is right now, you are okay with that. His cap hit for next season is 21 millions. It sounds worse than it actually is because like they restructure his contract like so many freaking times to like move money that like average on his contract is around like 17, 18 million, something like that over like last couple of years with all the restrictions. So it's not like it's like super bad as the cap hit would suggest, but I think he is definitely cut candidate though. With the void years attached to his contract, he is going to actually cost you $3 million more for this towards this year's cap hit to cut than to save him, but you are saving 15 million next year, which I think is worth it at this point of his career because I don't see him stopping this decline. It's unfortunate because like at his prime, what a player, what a freaking player. So it's kind of hard to see him struggle so heavily out there. And now we talk about, we can talk about the interior, but like Nathan Shepard is not necessarily like super exciting, man. I want to talk about Brian Breezy and Isaiah Foskey because like knowing that Cam Jordan is getting up there in age, they've made several high investments into this defensive line, where it was signing Kyra Granderson towards a long-term contract. But mostly what I want to talk is 29th pick for Brian Breezy and 40th pick for Isaiah Foskey in 2024 draft. And I just don't understand. I do understand, but I'm against that Brian Breezy does not have a label of a bust. Because to me, so far, he's been a bust. he's been like such a huge liability in terms of run defense. And when you, and that's the part that I do understand it, like when you put on his highlight reels, wow, like he is that really like almost like a freak. He can win with some nice moves, with power. He has tools to win pass rush snaps from the interior and give you, like he had 8 sacks. That's really good. He has good pass rush rate, but it's far too. He would need to have far more of these type of snaps that make impact in terms of pass rush to provide a cover for the fact that he is a freaking liability as a run defender. Like, it's abysmal. Like you just push him. Like, he is just not built for that position. He cannot run defend, and that's just such a huge liability. And unless you have like Vitava next to him, it's going to show. It's going to show as much as it is for now. So, like the fact that on 1 of 5 plays, he gives you something positive in terms of pass rush, but on other 4 plays, you can just look at Brian Breezy, look at where he is, and you just focus your run there, and you get 5, 6, 7 yards because the offensive linemen can win easily, or not easily, but quite easily one-on-ones against him. It's like, dude, like, come on, how do you cover that? So whether you want to blame the Saints for not putting him next to right personnel for him to, like, his huge weakness to be covered up, okay, like, I understand that, you can blame Saints, but I think like the talk about him not being a bust is one, hugely attributed to his highlights reel that look really good, but on snap-by-snap basis, it's not good. And also towards the fact that just 11 picks after him, the Saints picked Isaiah Foskey, and while Brian Breezy at least plays and gives you from time to time something to be excited, Isaiah Foskey so far gave you like nothing, like oof. So it's like you can't call them both bust, right? Like I would say that's also kind of makes part, because that would suggest that they are on the same level of bust. No, Isaiah Foskey is much bigger bust than Brian Breezy is, though I really feel like 2 years into his career, like Brian Breezy is nowhere near where I would imagine him to be, like given his draft pedigree. And I do understand he is not super old. He was entering as a very young prospect, 21 years old. So I get that. There is always like this project in a way, which again, like I would love that if some of other financial moves coexist with that, but they don't necessarily did. Because I think they drafted him the same year that they gave Derek Carr the money. I'm like, okay, doesn't make too much of sense to get him, but like still, 2 years in, this is not good. But with that being said, let's move towards what is, I believe, the best part of this team. That's the linebacker room. It's kind of weird. A lot of teams you have like, well, they have good lines. They kind of focus towards the trenches. A lot of teams like they have really good skilled players, or like they focus to prevent the skilled players by having a great secondary. And then there's Saints who they're finding like the best parts of the team, or the parts that get me most excited, are their tight ends and linebackers. Like 2 of the positions that for a lot of teams are a bit of an afterthought. Saints do it kind of differently. Demario Davis, I had to lower him from his elite starter status, because this was like the first year at some snaps I felt like the age was starting to creeping his ugly head and show up a little bit, but still he's like, in my rankings, he is a top 5 linebacker in the league. I do understand I will not be like in 100% agreement with this, with other guys watching football, but to me, he's just an exceptional player and still absolutely defines age. Next to him, you have Pete Werner. He would be starting linebacker number 1 on a lot of teams, and he's, again, like top 5 linebacker 2 in the league. And I'm sorry for the wrong picture. I was checking this, like, man, I'm pissed at myself, but sometimes this happens when you are doing so much. So we unfortunately don't have a right picture for Willie Gay. Sorry man, my apologies. Like at least it's like you are not signed up under this really bit of a lackluster stats that he put out in 2024. Though, like, this room is very fun. They have Pete Werner for next 3 years. Absolutely like the signing, and we will see whether Demario Davis even plays his contract out. I do expect him to be out there because I don't see a reason why not, and I would love to see like a couple more years from him, like essentially up to this point when it's like Cameron Jordan, when the decline is like that. I want to see Demario Davis out there. He's exceptional player. Like, I loved watching him. It's like guys, go out there and watch some snaps of Demario Davis and you will understand why I am so high on this guy. He's 36, man. Like that, you have to put that into account. Like, I understand you shouldn't be putting it into a grade, and I don't. I really don't. Like, I think he's as good as another amazing starters in the league. So, but like, it just owe me. Like, I'm in awe that he can do it in this age against the athletes that are in the league. I think that's very special. Let's move towards safeties. Another one of my favorite players, both for his nickname and for his style of play, in Tyrann Mathieu, aka the Honey Badger. After really quite exceptional season last year, he had a bit of a down year. I still feel like he is quite a good safety. As of right now, you are with him at the point that it's like similar to like Carl Granderson. Either you have several good pieces around him, and in that scenario, it's okay if he's your best player in the secondary, or you want to have someone slightly better than him to kind of lead the way, but still a player that is absolutely stud, and I don't think he will put out as bad of a season for his standards as he did this season. Next to him, we have Jordan Howden, player that is in his second year, and I think he showed absolutely enough to justify me putting him towards a good starter. I think like his tape for the 2 years justifies this move, despite like not having the biggest of sample sizes. You know, like he missed part of the season this year, unfortunately, but it's still over 1,000 snaps in which like there is not a glaring weakness in his game, and his like draft pedigree being a 5th rounder doesn't stop him from really being a good player. You know, like, you might call me weird that I like jump towards that like with Jordan Howden and not like with a guy like Cesar Ruiz. You have to understand that I like also take like quality of the position into account in terms of like I try to compare him to other good starters in terms of safeties and him to other good starters in terms of guards. And like if we would be on the scale where there are numbers, Jordan Howden and Cesar Ruiz numbers would be very close together. And like I said, maybe I will just change the grade on Cesar Ruiz because I really need to rewatch him a little bit more. But I think like what Jordan Howden is putting out there in terms of his tape is justifying this grade, though definitely the lower tier. Now they had Will Harris as kind of this veteran safety signing in case Jordan Howden doesn't necessarily pan out, and also a player that you can use or they can use in like some other roles that necessarily are not safety. You know, he played some as wide corner, some even as part of the line, some as slot. So they were using him kind of like in some exotic looks even, and he absolutely stood his ground. He's kind of what he is at his age, and he was a nice, very cheap and quite a nice signing for the Saints. In terms of let's say back end of the secondary in terms of corners. We already talked about Kool-Aid, such a nice find, really a player that they had clearly had a vision how they will get him on the field. Everything panned out great. Now let's talk about Paulson Adebo, because he is not under contract for next season. And the thing is, I was surprised that they have not traded him. Why? Because he is exactly the type of player that right now I don't think the Saints can afford to, let's say, competitively resign. So if there is a team that is interested in Adebo, and I think there will be some teams interested in him because he is a good, good number 2 corner in the league, and they offer him like a multi-year type of deal, I think Saints should not absolutely match this because they just don't have finances to do so. And with that being said, you are kind of losing Adebo for close to zero compensation because he is not good enough so you could tag and trade him, because tag would be like too high of a price for him for anyone to pick up. So he's kind of in this weird eclipse where he is good above just resign him cheaply, but he's also not exceptional towards like let's just tag and trade him or just make him play under the tag. Not that you can afford a tag in any case, but so this is kind of a weird situation, and I expected them to trade Paulson Adebo last year, and I doubt that he's going to be back. Like, if the money evaluation is correct on him, which based on Spot Track should be like 11 millions a year. Like, I don't think you can. Like, the other part is, do I feel like they will? That's unfortunately where I'm like, yeah, I don't necessarily have the trust in Saints not to do this. And like I said, in normal situation, this is absolutely a fair deal. It's just a Saints situation with money is so shit that this is just compromising you while your team is not like adding victories because of this. Like, you might, again, like he might bring you 0.3 wins a season more. That just doesn't push you over the edge with all of the other problems that these teams have. And the problem with not resigning him is you were kind of hoping that you have a really good guy in Alonta Taylor. You've invested highly in him. It was a second round pick in 2022. And he was pretty freaking shitty. This year he played over 1,000 snaps. And he was a problem. And unfortunately, you have to say he was a problem again. Because like his first year was decent for a rookie corner. But 2 years after, from coverage perspective, over that span, there was not a worse player in the league playing like a good amount of snaps. Like, he allows so many yards, he can't cover anything, and it's a scary thought thinking about Alonta to be once again your starting corner. And it probably has to be if you let go Paulson Adebo. So I understand, Saints fans like, we have to bring Adebo back, and Saints management, we should bring Adebo back. I'm like, don't like realize that you are in a situation where if you just keep doing this, you will have 10 years of misery before you figure this out. Because like, even if you make reasonable signings, before you get out of this spinning of the money where you are like almost 200 millions in some void years, some dead cap hits, before you can get yourself rid out of that, unless you're making like a proper cut, it's going to take a long time. Like, like imagine you are smart and you are really making bargains and saving 25 million a year. But if you are 200 million debt, that means that you are even 8 years down the line, right? And people are like, well, so what if I am like in the debt, that's not a problem. Like, it is a problem because, for example, this year, not mentioning cuts that they will probably have to make, they are already 50 plus millions over their cap hit, and 50 millions of that is that cap, aka paying for the guys that are no longer on the roster. So that's what you're doing when you're restructuring deals, other kind of this phantom / void years. Where in 2027 this guy is not going to be here, but he's going to count 15 millions against the cap hit, but he's not going to count now, so that's good. You are eventually you are going to pay, and with Saints, they are paying pretty much since like 2022. Every single year they have to like do some magic, push another type of money down the line. And unless you are realizing that and you are really making conscious decisions like trading Marshall Latimore, you are never going to get out of that, and you will be compromised every single season unless you you actually make the radical decision, in my opinion. Okay, with that being said, let's hand out some rewards. The draft hit, it has to go to Kool-Aid McKinstry. He just jumped Alias Fuaga in terms of not only that he was a good pick, but they actually had a plan with him. They obviously had a plan with Fuaga, but that plan was like easy. We don't have a left tackle, let's put a left tackle out there, or we have to have a planning, but that's almost the same deal. So that's where Kool-Aid kind of jumps Fuaga for this reward. In terms of draft blunder, like Bob Means, even though I uppered his grade, which I'm not sure why I did. I think this could be a blunder, because this was a year where, because of the injuries, he could have shown, and there were some positive plays, but there were very few far in between. So, I think that this grade is not going to hold my reevaluation later in the summer. And I would say this will happen. I will rewatch some of the films, some of the stats, listen to some of the podcasts, because I try to extract information from my eyes, from my ears, from pretty much everything, because I think that's how you are becoming as unbiased as you can be, and also as knowledgeable as you can be. I would say it's just stupid to think that on every player you have the best evaluation out there. You need to realize that you are not good at this. You are not a computer, you are not a machine. You cannot possibly have in your head everything down to the wire for the last person on every roster. So it's listening to Saints talk, listening to guys that watch this team as close as I, for example, watch Seahawks, where you can get some information. For example, with Kyle Dagger, the fact that he was playing with some sort of injury was a little bit known. It's not necessarily super public information, but it was known. But the extent of the injury, the reality that he actually everybody's playing through something, but he was playing through something that he probably shouldn't have not played through. Those are the things that make you rethink how you perceive a player, because and those are not definitely things that you will get on your own very easily. In terms of you do it with your research, but not just by watching the game. So that's just one thing out there for Bob Memes. I don't think that your grade's going to hold, but maybe it will. We will see about that one. In terms of cornerstone of this franchise, here it was kind of weird to choose, because usually it's guy that you count on for upcoming seasons, but here is a bunch of veterans or total rookies that are not necessarily exceptional. You can justify that award to Malik Neighbors. And also I try to put the performance of 2024 in there. But when I was thinking, it's I mean, I would like to give it to for example, Eric McCoy, but he played 200 snaps, so I cannot really do that. I'm wow, Demario Davis, but I think he's going to play one more year. So who had the best season, and who was really the guy that when you put him out, the team was falling apart? But he still had some snaps, because that could count for Taysom Hill as well. I'm well, it's Derek Carr. I'm what? Am I actually rewarding Derek Carr? but I think they should cut him. So how he's qualifying for this award? So I was really struggling with this one. But yeah, I kind of gave it to Derek Carr. Like the true meaning of this award, like should disqualify him, especially because I plan to cut him. But when I was really looking through the season with these guys and the bunch of injuries that they've suffered, I was like, I don't know, man. So I kind of took this as an opportunity to like praise Derek Carr, because I don't do that too much. Like if as a player that you are paying $30 million a year and you can, because of that, you can build around him. It's probably slightly too much, but like it's the biggest position in football, and in some systems that's great. And this was the system that he could excel in. But if you are in position of not going anywhere as Saints were, and you are closing in on 40 millions, like he's just not worth it in my opinion. So I wanted to appreciate him. No, it perhaps doesn't look like this. Like perhaps in his last snaps with the Saints, because I don't think I'm alone in thinking that Saints might cut the ties with Derek Carr. But this actually, I wanted to appreciate that with the system around him, that Clint Kubiak was able to incorporate within the Saints, like really nice running game, rough blocking, and some very nice design deep shots, which Derek Carr low-key has really good. He tried. I think it was his ceiling, and like if he is there, I feel like Kellen Moore is actually a guy that can make use of that, but he's just not a player you are in position to afford for like chance to being 7-10 in my opinion. But yeah, I cannot do it, guys. Like I cannot just praise him. Like, and it's like I want to praise the player because like he showed his best tape in last 5 years. But I want to still bash the management for like thinking about like this contract. So, Derek, great job. Huge kudos for what you've done this season, working with a lot of injury depleted lineups ahead of you. I wish you the very best. And I hope for the Saints' sake that they will cut ties with you, because I don't think you are leading them towards Super Bowl in any stretch of imagination. And if anything, you are, unfortunately, because of your big cap hits, depleting their future. Sorry for that. Good luck. In terms of unsung hero, I wanted to sing it for Foster Moreau, for his breakout year, for his defeat of the cancer, and really being low-key one of the top 15 performing tight ends this season. Like he was really out there. It was like his first showing that he could play on that level. So I'm not like ready to put him towards like an important starter, but it was fun to watch. And I like also it was kind of this warm story about cancer survivor that's just kind of defining the odds, and despite circumstances, are playing his best football late in his career after his health was figured out, luckily. So good luck to Foster Moreau. And in terms of bust, Isaiah Foskey, or like a flop, in terms of flop, I cannot go anywhere but to Isaiah Foskey, because like I thought about Brian Breezy, but then I'm like, yeah, when I compare these two guys, like Isaiah Foskey is just, he doesn't give you anything. Like this guy, I mean, even though I thought that he was like overdrafted, if he went like pick 80, which was like much more of a range when I think he should have, you would be super freaking disappointed for what he's put out there. So yeah, one big L for the management, and unfortunately for Isaiah, just hope that he gives you something year 3, though I think anything you get from this point is kind of house money. You don't expect that to happen. With that being said, 2024 season is kind of like done. Let's now check where this franchise is at with their new head coach and Kellen Moore. My grade for him is C. which is respectable grade, though it would put him probably in my like bottom 7 of head coaches. But I don't think that he is necessarily going to be bad. The thing that I have with him is like he was like 4 years ago, I think he was taunted as this next really good young progressive mind, but he was kind of hit and miss last couple of years. Like for example, his stint with Chargers really didn't go too well, and like yeah, with Eagles it worked, but also this is such a fucking stacked roster, so I need to see that he can handle the pressure, handle like everything that goes along with head coaching job. He's quite young still, and I'm not necessarily like starstruck by his resume. It's really good, and like I like have almost like zero question about his work ethic, about him being like super smart dude that like figured it out and really like he knows the NFL, he breathes NFL. But being head coach is a different type of thing, and like his adaptation, for example, with the Chargers, didn't necessarily go as smoothly as I would want to. How did they go in 2024? What would be my grade for the Saints? It would be D. It's like the expectations were not high yet. I feel like they still slightly disappointed them, though it was a lot of due to the injuries. We've seen some of the declines of players like Cam Jordan, like Tyrann Mathieu, which is unfortunate, though kind of expected. They did not necessarily get the highest pick, which again, that's kind of the problem, that you are constantly compromising your future so you can be slightly below average. that absolutely sucks. That's like really the worst. And we've not necessarily seen anyone like raise up to like super high level. And also the fact that you might have lost Chris Olave, because I don't know like if he plays, if he's one more concussion away from like not playing anymore. That's a huge blow, huge deal towards this franchise future. In terms of QB, I cannot go anywhere but to the 3 minuses, because this is a definition of you are paying good money or great money for a QB that's going to give you slightly under average performance. So as much as like I wanted to praise Derek Carr, I feel like this was kind of like upper flip of what he is, and I do expect him to regress a bit of towards mean, and that's just not a player that should have this massive cap hit and this massive pay. I mean, you can argue it's definitely not as bad as like what the his former team is Houston for the Browns have with Deshaun Watson. So it's like, could it be 2 minuses? I mean, it would be if they've already cut Derek Carr, because then you are not paying for not a great production. So it's like definitely a huge difference between him and Rattler. Or it could be if Rattler showed much more of a promise than he did year 1. In terms of hot seat, I have it at 2, and it's kind of because of like huge lack of experience for Kellen Moore, and you know they still might be delusional within the organization to think that they are going somewhere. So you know, if they kind of won't go anywhere, he might take the blame for that. But it's mostly about like his total experience with this position and his young age. In terms of finances, this is disaster. Like I said, there are 3 teams that have borrowed so much money from the future. It's Eagles, it's Saints, and it's the Browns. 2 of these teams are fucked, because if you are doing that and you are constantly in one of the first episodes of Road to Super Bowl, then you are not doing something well. If you are in the last episode, then it paid off, right, Eagles? So that's that. In terms of strength, I think they have top 3 linebacker room in the league, but like it kind of says a lot about this team. Like this is not necessarily a room that when you excel at it, anybody is like afraid of you, right? So it's like, okay, great, I love the players, I'm really excited, but what good does it do? What good does that do? Like overall, like that room can bring you just this much compared to some of the more valuable positions. Let's go on a high note on something positive for the Saints. That's the division. It still is one of the worst in football, and from the Saints' perspective, like it's 2+. It's like close to the best that they could hope for. You know, kind of like what stops them from having like 3+ is Bryce Young looking quite nice, Michael Penix actually looking quite nice, and Tampa was actually quite a dangerous playoff team. So they might be on the reason, but if you want why it's not like just 1+, or why it's not like even less than that, it's like you don't know what Michael Penix is going to be. They have a ton of dead cap with Kirk Cousins, and a lot of their players that they've invested heavily in terms of draft, they kind of wasted their prime years on rookie deals. Jake London, Kyle Pitts, so like he's kind of not necessarily pan out as this great player. You know, Bijan Robinson, I mean, you still have like 3 years in theory, but so that like Tyler Archer is in his last year. So the finances are not necessarily in like a great situation there. And with Carolina, like the defense is kind of non-existent still, or like in very bad state. And with Bryce Young, the sample size is just not huge. And with Tampa, like, yeah, but what you say that Tampa is like what 12th best team in the league? Yeah, like, you know, you need to understand that, like, yeah, there are good teams, but it's like really hard to find like 3 shitty teams next to. So you need to put that into perspective, like how much worse it could have been. With that being said, let's check out how this team could look like and could line up for their first snaps in 2025. So here I left one position unoccupied, that was a guard. I really thinking like with Kellen Moore being hired, I would bet some money on decent odds if that Trevor Penning is going to make a transition towards guard, and they will look to add right tackle through the free agency or to the draft. And it's like, well, even if you are not like super huge fan of that plan for Trevor Penning, it's like, well, don't you still want to upgrade over Trevor Penning, because like he's not necessarily great, right? And I do have Spencer Rattler as their starting QB, and I might have to cut him out of this picture eventually, because as I thought about some of the things that I would do as a Saints GM, like I would not try to bring any experienced QB. Like I said with Carr, it's just like the situation is just not in position that any guy that costs money pretty much is going to get you anywhere, in my opinion. So I would cut Derek Carr, because you can save some nice amount of money. Let me give you guys exact numbers. So his cap hit for this season is 51 millions. For the next year, it's 61 millions, and then there is 70 millions already on void year. So if you cut him now, or you do it like with post 6-1 release, which makes sense in my opinion, you lower his cap hit from 51 millions to 21 millions, so you are saving 30 millions this season, and you are lowering his cap hit next year from 61 million to 28, which means you are saving over 30 millions, and you are also like cutting those void years from that contract, because they are going to be attached to the money you are paying this and next season. So you are actually saving quite a lot of money, yet you are leaving over 50 millions on the dead cap. That's where, like, if you are signing this type of contract, you better fucking leave yourself out a nicer way to not leave so many dead cap behind. But I think it's a necessary, like, huge cut that they need to do. That being said, I'm not sure I would entrust this into Spencer Rattler, at least not without competition. So definitely I think like they should draft a guy and not with top picks. So if you are like, if Shedeur Sanders is out there, we draft him as number 9. I would not do that. But I feel like they should take a punt on some third round guys this season. There are some interesting names. But also at the same time, I just absolutely love the idea of them calling Patriots, hey guys, we have what? We have 93rd pick in this draft. It's late third. You drafted Milton as a sixth rounder. How about we make a trade? And with Milton kind of being stuck over Drake May, it's like there is not really him chance of playing quarterback in the New England. We're like, well, why shouldn't they do it, right? So I think this makes sense for both sides, and I would really like to pair him with Kellen Moore, pair him with Taysom Hill, and really put him into the Saints infrastructure and really think about some creative ways how to use him. Whether it's as a starting QB, as a QB, that would be after the training camp. But I really like this pairing. So as of right now, I would probably not have Spencer Rattler here, though. I think he has a good chance to be their starting QB, though it's not something that you are excited about because he's going to be the worst starting QB in the league. But you have to start someday with the rebuild, actually. With that being said, I feel like in terms of like the rest of offensive players, you are kind of set with your starters because again, I'm not like investing heavily when I just don't have the money and I think I want to save. So both like Taysom Hill is kind of uncuttable because like that's another thing, like what you have to put into account with how the void years work, because if you have some and you want to cut the player, every void years kind of count towards the year that you are cutting him in. So if you cut Taysom Hill right now, his cap hit this season would go down from 18.2 millions to 17.7 million. So you would save 500k. You would save actually 9 millions or almost 10 millions next year because the void years would be gone. But it's like, that doesn't solve the fact that you are 50 millions over the cap necessarily, right? So that's one of the problems why this it's not super easy to get out of this spiral, unless you are making really big moves like letting go of Derek Carr. Foster Moreau, I absolutely like him. I think as a tight end too, like you are whistling. Alvin Kamara, you can do much worse in terms of your starting running backs, though you can do much better. But they are set with him again. Like if you try to get rid of him, just some fun facts, just to give you guys perspective on how they have to like structure their contract so they are even above cap hit or under cap hit. So if you release him right now, you are saving exactly minus 15 millions towards this year. So his cap hit would go from 10 millions to 26 millions. So those are kind of the players that that are going to be on the roster because it's pretty much financially impossible to to cut them. With that being said, towards wide receivers, I am like, let's flip it. Let's see if Shahid and Olave can play one healthy season, and then we make a decision on whether like how we approach the contracts. I want to see more from Bob Means. So like in this situation, he's even my wide receiver number 3. But as I said, I would definitely like this team to be in 12 personnel, even in 13 personnel, create some stuff with Joe Milton, with Taysom Hill, and like in that situation, you can live with just having 2 good wide receivers, though you hope that they stay healthy. So that's why like I'm kind of okay with Bob Means actually being on this screen, though. Really kind of. Like you can put Cedric Wilson in. It's just like, if I'm not going anywhere, I want my young guy to get more snaps. In terms of backups, like Cedric Wilson, like why I'm not having him on this page, it's like you can save 2.5 million by cutting him. Is it like value in terms of like are you paying him over what he's supposed to be getting? Not necessarily, but the problem is you have to save money somewhere. So I'm saving on Cedric Wilson, and my backup RB is actually Kendra Miller here, though as I was thinking about this, I would really love for them, and it's like I'm not sure where where I should like put the guy that I have in mind, or like not a guy as a guy, like, but perception of a guy. And I'm thinking about drafting a running back in this year's class with either second or third round. And who I'm talking about is a prototype of strong running back, someone that will kind of split carries with Alvin Kamara, or even like out carry him on first and second downs. But Alvin Kamara takes kind of all the third. So there is power back that I have in mind, that you want to wear and tear the defense, especially when you go in 12 and 13 personnel, when you hopefully use Taysom Hill in some cases, and perhaps Joe Milton. Did I like mention Jalen Miller? Did I interchange him? I think I was saying Joe Milton. Let me know down in chat. But it's like those guys are kind of interchangeable in terms of name and some of the skills in my mind, or for some reason. Sorry about that. But I think I was saying Joe Milton. So with that being said, I would really love them to go and draft this type of a power back that will get like 500 really tough carries, which first of all is going to wear and tear on defense, and second of all is going to protect Alvin Kamara from these carries that you don't necessarily want him to have that much of. Like, he's still good at them, but that's not his specialty. Like, you want him on third down, you want him as this quasi even wide receiver in some cases. That's what he is best at. So I want to relieve him of some of the first and second down duties, draft a power back, and really make this quite a fun offensive type of scheme. And again, like, Kellen Moore is coming from Philadelphia, where I think it was over 50% of the games, like, Saquon Barkley had more rushing attempts than Jalen Hurts has passing attempts or passing completions. So yeah, make this about running. There is some solid foundation for that. Even I think your offensive line is much more suited towards the running back. That's why I would definitely put Trevor Benning inside. Go for Joe Milton. Like, there is a potential for this team to be quite funny for enthusiasts like me that would enjoy something a little bit more exotic, a little bit more weird, and it could actually be proven quite effective. So, and I think for this type of job, Kellen Moore could be very, very the right coach. Let's now shift towards defense. As much as I was bashing Brian Breezy, I think you start him. You just kind of don't have necessarily other options, because you need to save some money, and you need to see what is in him. Carl Granderson, obviously starter, and I think we probably try to invest another draft capital into these positions. You have exceptional linebacker duo. I cannot imagine them not starting unless Demar Davis hangs up his cleats, but I don't think he is going to do that. In terms of secondary, safeties are set. You have your number one corner, and you have problems. Because I really don't want Hamilton Taylor to start. But if I'm responsible, if I really feel like what's best for this franchise, as much as it pains me, I would say Ante Taylor should be starting corner, because what's the best case scenario for the Saints in 2025? Again, one and done. They didn't super hit on their draft. For them to even in this cap hit scenario where every year it's you are going with only 80% of cap hit comparing to other teams, the only chance for you to actually really be competitive is if you absolutely freaking hit on drafts. And despite this was on their basis really good draft, in all of the sense it was slightly above average. So you don't have this generational talent of the draft, and also you didn't really had that many high draft picks first and second round, but no third and fourth. So maybe it's that, but this is definitely a room that I'm really looking towards free agents, looking towards corners in draft, and I'm looking for bargains to bring into this room. And at least try to create a competition for Anta Taylor that, like at least he's beaten someone in the camp that justifies him being a starter. In terms of backups, Isaiah Foskey is still there because, well, like he ain't going anywhere. They've spent such a high pick on him that they will probably keep on hoping. It's not like the Washington where they just cut Emmanuel Forbes like 1.5 years into that project. Kalen Sanders, why is he here? I'll let you guys guess. Is it because his cap hit is small, or is it because he's uncuttable? Well, it's partially both. Like you could save 2.5 million, which is like for a player of his caliber, that's not much, and his cap hit is actually quite low, 4.7 million. So I do imagine the world when he starts to next to Brian Breezy, but again, that would just highlight problems with Brian Breezy because Kalen Sanders is also not a good run defender. And like with other positions here, it's like draft, experienced veteran that costs nothing. That's the play. Like you cannot feel like this is not going to be painful process. But I believe 2 years of quite a bit of pain and then fresh start is much better than 10 years of depression because you will always look adequate but nowhere near good enough to make any noise in the playoffs and nowhere near bad enough to actually have a number one pick. So this would be how I would approach this, really making this one huge cut in terms of Derek Carr. I will also get rid of Cameron Jordan, some other veterans. It would still require me to push some money towards 2025, so it's 2026. So it's not a 1 year process. It's not even that after next year I will be without depth in this scenario, but it's going to be much more manageable, and I could finally kind of breathe a fresh air. We will see if that's what the Saints end up doing. My worry is that they will not. And next year we will have a very similar conversation about the team that's probably going to be 7-10. But it's not as hopeless as it was last year. I feel like I've seen some progress towards the thinking in this franchise in terms of it's probably not smart, keeping every veteran on the cap hit 1 million this year and 20 million somewhere in the future. But there is still some ways to go before I trust that they will do what I really think is necessary for Saints to be a team that like is relevant, because like as of right now, like they are kind of there. They are kind of there in terms of NFL, but they are not relevant. Like, they can screw up someone's season, yes, but like, in terms of having a chance to win a Super Bowl, I would still put them at this point probably above Cleveland, though like they don't have Myles Garrett as this trade piece that can really speed up the process of rebuilding. So they might still be in the worst positions in terms of their 5-year expectancy to win a Super Bowl. So I'm sorry, a Saints fan. If you watched it up to this point, please give me a like, give me a comment, let me know if I'm wrong on this, if you think I'm absolutely an idiot for calling for this massive rebuild, or how can I say that he's a cornerstone and that I would cut him. I would understand every bit of that hate, bring it on, but I really try to be sensible towards future that actually can be good for the Saints. With that, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching, and have a nice day. Bye.